Very good evening to you. You are watching Newsfirst in Focus. Today we are going to talk to the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, Mr. Damitha Kumara Singha. Very good evening to you, sir.
Very good evening.
Thank you for being here. I want to ask you a question about the Ceylon Electricity Board, because you are the regulator of the Ceylon Electricity Board as the PUCSL. We know that the country is experiencing a lot of drought weather conditions, dry weather conditions throughout, and less rains. So the hydropower plants also are affected in a certain way. And with the only power plant, Norochole, operating as the only power plant in the country, it's a bit hard to provide the electricity to the demand that is there out in the society. So how is the CEB and the PUSL operating with in terms of providing, because you all are bound, the CEB is bound to provide 24 hours uninterrupted electricity to the people?
Yeah, actually, Chaturanga, now if you look at the Sri Lanka power system, we have about 4,000 megawatts of installed capacity, whereas our peak demand is about 2,300 megawatts, and we have a gigawatt hours, 13,000 gigawatt hour requirement throughout the year. So even though we have 4,000 megawatts of installed capacity, about 500 of them are small hydros and other renewable sources, and more than 1,000 megawatts are large hydros. So when you are going through a dry spell like this, of course the power generation through hydro resources become very difficult, and due to that reason meeting the demand is become a challenge. So, but these days, due to the fully operational Norochole and other thermal power plants, plus some usage of hydros and other renewables, the CEB is managing uninterrupted power supply during these days. But if it continues, it is little difficult, because then we have to have all the main power plants in order to cater the demand during periods like this.
Norochole power plant has also not been very reliable in the past few years. There have been the main generators out of the three. There have been several breakdowns in either of the generators that is in operation. Does this create a problem to the PUCSL? Are you all worried about how the country is going to get this much of electricity, or are you all actually looking at ways of going into thermal power like diesel power? What is the plan of the PUCSL?
No, actually, if you look at the future, so we have a huge demand need in future. For the next 3 years, in our plan, we have about 1,500 megawatts of power plants to be implemented with various sources.
Right.
And Norochole being one of the main power plants, because it's a 900 megawatt power plant with 300 megawatt units, so which is the largest power plant, single power plant that we have today, and which is capable of supplying 24-hour electricity. It's a base load power plant. So the proper operation and of this power plant especially during periods like this, is of very importance for uninterrupted power supply. So that's why we are very concerned about the Norochole's operation.
Now moving on, we know that renewable energy is an area that the government has shown very keen interest. There is an LNG power plant in the discussion, in the pipeline happening in Kerala as well. But going on to matters like this, liquid natural gas is a very expensive mechanism to generate electricity. Is the wider opinion outside, even though you say it's cheap, the production cost of it is going to be high and the distribution is going to be high. But the pricing of the electricity, is there going to be a change in the future with the increased demand? How is that going to happen?
No, actually it depends on how you meet this demand. Depending on the prices of the resources at the time, that determines the cost and the tariffs. So this generation plan is based on the least cost for a period of 20 years. So in that, the renewable natural gas mix seems to be cheaper than any other option. So that's why the Commission has chosen that option over the other options. as well as natural gas is expected to be expected in the Mana Basin also to come into the system.
Yes.
And renewables are there where the price is coming down now. Prices are coming down. So mix of gas and renewables are giving a much cheaper option than other options as per our studies in the generation plan.
Now, we are national grid. Is it accustomed to accommodate a mixture of both LNG and thermal, hydro? We have a mixture of things coming into the grid. How does that work? Does there need to be updating or development of the national grid as well, or are we ready to accommodate such a thing?
No, actually, if you look into the future, you definitely need to upgrade the national grid. One is you need to have a more stronger grid to accommodate more and more power plants, and also you have to have a very stable grid to absorb intermittent resources like wind, solar and other renewable resources. So grid needs to be upgraded, grid may need to be revamped and have a very stable grid for the future, which needs a lot of investments. And with the new generation plan, you have to have a grid which can support this generation plan.
With that, Mr. Kumar Singh, we have to go into a short commercial break. Stay with us. You are watching Biz First in Focus. Welcome back. You are watching Biz First in Focus. We are in discussion with the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission in Sri Lanka, Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe. We were discussing with him about the power sector in advance and how it's going to affect the future power generation plan of our country. Mr. Kumarasinghe, I want to ask you a question now. We speak of various power plants that are coming up in the country. We saw a huge public uprising when it came to the coal power plants in the country. Now the government is talking about LNG in Kerala. Once again there are issues. The CEB seems to be having a plan for the future, but how far is this plan working out?
Actually, if you look at the past, there were some years where we were not able to implement the plans. Therefore, now we are in a situation where during dry spells it is difficult to supply energy. But with the new plan in, which has about 1500 megawatts for the next 3 years. So if you take 1500 megawatts into context, we are talking about a 4000 megawatt system right now. So this is 40% or 30% of the current system that needs to come in within a period of 3 years. So we have to have a very quick implementation process.
What years are we talking about? When you say
18, 19 and 20.
Right.
So we need to have a very quick implementation process in order to get these plants in. Now if we are able to get these 1500 plus megawatts which are in the plan over that period at the right times, then we can say we can supply electricity without any issue at a lower cost. So, and if you look at the longer term of 10 or more years, then we have to have more base load plants. Now we have proposed natural gas. So there are about 1300 to 400 megawatts of natural gas from 2021 until 2027. So that has to come in, and also it has to couple with the development of the renewable energy, which can serve the requirements of the country.
But all these things are things that should be going step by step. You can't just immediately go from one to the other. Has the CEB and the PUCSL and all these relevant stakeholders taken steps to actually start this by 2018, or are we still in a planning stage? We are at the end of 2017, almost. We are at the halfway stage, and these 6 months are also going to go very fast. But you speak of 2018 to 2020. Has this PUCSL, the CEB and all these other relevant authorities taken steps to actually start this by 2018?
Yeah, actually now the planning process is over. The plan is approved and plan is there. So now the CEB has already started the implementation. The CEB is in the process of calling tenders for all the major plants that are scheduled to be commissioned in the period of 2018 to 2020 for 2021. Those will be called within next few months. So
what is the priority? What's the priority? What plants and where is the priority going to be?
No, priority is for all the plants actually.
All the plants.
So we have about 300 megawatts of heavy fuel plants, 300 megawatts of natural gas plants. Then we have again about 700 megawatts of renewable plants, wind, solar, hydro and biomass. So all these things need to come in during the next 3 years in order to have a very comfortable supply of electricity.
What if it does not? What if you are not able to get this done in the 3 years?
No, actually, it's very simple. If you are to supply power, you need to have the power. So you need to have the power, you need to have the plants.
So if what you are basically saying is, if you don't have it in the 3 years, we are going to be in darkness in 2020, or we are going to have problems.
I'm not saying we are going into darkness, but it would be really challenging to supply 24/7 electricity.
Will by this time, at this time, let's hope everything works out for the PUCSL and the country on behalf of everyone here. But let's take a situation where this does not happen by 2020, and let's look at it in the worst possible outcome. Will that mean that the public will have to look at maybe spending more on electricity because the CEB has to do more in terms of getting diesel power or things like that? Will there be the cost increase? Will it be imminent is what I'm asking.
No, actually, if we fail to implement these plans, then obviously if we are to supply 24/7 electricity, then we have to come out with emergency power. So emergency power is expensive. So the long-term planning is there to ensure that there won't be this emergency power coming in, and long-term plan is a least cost plan. So now the discussion and the focus should be to implement this plan.
Right.
In order to supply power, not on the plan.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, now when we look at, if you actually go out and take a look outside, you see various constructions coming up, various infrastructure facilities coming up, and half of these infrastructure facilities are coming as foreigners coming and investing here, they're FDIs. So these people too worry about the stability of your organization, the stability of the CEB, water, all of these matters they also consider. In terms of looking at the country from an international perspective, are we in a good stage now, or are we going down in a downhill slope?
No, actually, as far as the power sector is concerned, this plan has taken into account all the major developments that are in the horizon, and the power plants which are identified in the plan are capable of supplying that demand.
Right.
So as I said earlier, now what we need to focus is to get these plants on time, implemented on time. So the modality of implementation, the financing and other socio-economic issues, all those things need to be sorted out during next 12 months or 24 months.
Right.
Quickly, for the plants for the next 10 years, because it takes a lot of time to have a LNG plant or a gas plant. It takes a lot of time. So we have to start the implementation of not only the first 3 years, but the first 10-year plans immediately.
Right. With that, Mr. Kumarasinghe, we have to go into another short commercial break. Mr. Kumarasinghe says that the implementation has to commence on time. We'll ask him what the challenges are when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. You are watching Newsfirst in Focus. We are in discussion about the energy sector and the Ceylon Electricity Board with the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, Mr. Damitha Kumarasinghe. Sir, we were talking about the implementation of the plans that you all have carried out with the CEB, but definitely you all are going to encounter challenges in terms of getting this done by 2018. It's very paramount that you do. So what are the basic challenges that you all have encountered, or what are the forecasts for in terms of challenges?
No, actually, challenge is to have a now. As I said, challenge is to implement about 30% of the installed capacity today within a period of 10 years, which is a challenge itself.
Definitely.
And also there is another challenge where out of this 1500 megawatts, about half of that is wind, solar and other intermittent resources, which is of course new at this point of time, and we need the grid to absorb these resources as well. And there are also some operational challenges of the grid due to these intermittent resources. So not only implementation, but operationally also there are challenges. So I hope the technical teams, the engineers, all those people are geared to operate this new system, new technologies, and the new thinking.
Moving on, we saw the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy taking actual steps to provide solar power to the people at lower cost, so that people will also be interested. How far is this happening in the country now? Are you aware of it, of the solar power generation?
Yeah, now you are talking about the Surya Bala Sangramaya, where we are looking at using the rooftops of houses and other sites to generate electricity, and the government or the CB already purchases electricity from the rooftops, and that program is providing dividends. Today we have about 80 megawatts of energy generated through rooftops. Now we are planning to go up to about 200 megawatts by 2020. So which is a challenge, but it is doable, and we expect the people also to participate in this energy generation, so that you can have private capital injected into the system, as well as generate it through environmentally friendly renewable resources.
This program is still functioning, still happening?
It is still happening, and we expect it to grow further in time to come.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, another interesting point is that we touched on this during our previous sessions as well, but there are various infrastructure developments happening. You see the port city, financial city coming up, we see various other buildings coming up, and we know that the Hambantota port and the industrial zone that is surrounding that is going to require a lot of electricity from our national grid. Methods like this, the development projects that are happening, is that a concern for you all?
No, actually all these development programs which are envisaged are taken into account in the planning process.
So the generation plan involves all of this?
Yes, from port city to Hambantota development, and all other major developments are included in the generation plan.
You spoke that the 2,300 area is megawatts is the requirement at present. With all this coming in, the Hambantota, the financial city, what will the demand look like in the future, in about 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years, it may go up to about 4,000 megawatts.
Almost double.
Yeah.
Almost double. Mr. Kumarasinghe, now another problem is, or not a problem, actually a good thing, is that the government is considering Sri Lanka to be self-sufficient in terms of energy by 2030. With all of this what you've said, then these little plans that the CEB and the PUCSL has, with all of this coming in, do you think it is practical for the government to say that it is able to do self-sufficient generation of power by 2030?
Yeah, actually what we are looking at from this plan and the future plans is to have about 60% of energy generated through renewable energy by 2030. Actually we have given a direction in this plan to CB for their next plan, where you need to have a plan which will provide 60% of the energy through renewable energy by 2030. And also we expect natural gas to come in from Mana developments. So by 2030 we expect about 55 to 60% from renewables, another 20 to 25% from gas, and probably another 15 to 20% from existing coal plants. So we are in that line. So by 2030 and beyond, we are striving to get energy self-sufficiency. So I think it's doable, but as I said earlier, with these new resources and new new investment environments and new challenges are there. So we have big challenges to face in achieving that. But I think CB and other organizations which are in this process are capable of handling it.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, finally the most important question. everyone talks of a price hike in the electricity bill. The IMF has also called for a pricing mechanism in its reports, several of its reports, but we have not seen something of that sort happening. Are you all satisfied with the pricing mechanism that is prevalent, or are you going to fall in line with the IMF requirements and create a new pricing mechanism? What is happening?
No, actually, we already have a pricing mechanism. We have a very transparent methodology where the price can be set twice annum, right? So it's a kind of a formula, a mechanism. So it is there. It is not something new. It is there in our mechanism also. But there is an important issue that we need to address, is that whatever the price that is passed through to the consumers should be fair and transparent. For that, the utilities also should ensure a transparent, fair mechanism for the pricing.
Right.
For that, with the 2013 tariff decision, the Commission has given certain conditions for the utilities to fulfill, including the bulk supply transaction account, which is a very transparent account of the system, as well as some auditing requirements on generation dispatch and various other things to come in, so that this transparency and fairness can be assured through the tariff process. Otherwise, it is unfair to pass whatever the cost that is incurred by a utility to the consumers. Consumers also should feel that whatever we pay is fair. So for that, utilities also should try to strive to come out with this transparency.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, one more point is that when you walk around Colombo, you see a lot of cable laying carried out by the CEB. What is happening in terms of that? What actually are they doing? Are they trying to provide more electricity to the people, or is there increased demand in these Colombo areas? Is that why this is happening, or is this a new plan carried out by the CEB?
No, actually CEB has three plans. One is the generation plan, transmission plan, and the distribution plan.
Right.
So all are interrelated. All are interrelated, and these new cables or the lines are there as a result of the increase of demand or upgrading of the system. Both
Can happen.
Can happen. So these plans are now in the phase of implementation. Now we expect a new transmission plan and a new distribution plan soon.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, another interesting point is when it comes to, I'm continuously asking you about this pricing mechanism carried out by the PUC. Who actually decides when the price of the electricity bill that I or someone watching this program receives at home, who decides an increase or a decrease?
No, actually it happens like this. According to our methodology, the Ceylon Electricity Board and Lanka Electricity Company should file their costs every 6 months. So depending on the costing, the increase or decrease of tariff is determined.
Right.
As I said earlier, as regulator, we are not ready to pass any cost to the consumer.
Right.
So for that, utilities also ensure that whatever the cost they submit is transparent and fair through various mechanisms. So there are some more mechanisms that needs to be fulfilled by the utilities in order to ensure full, transparent, fair system. We have started this in 2010, so we are in the 7th year actually, and we expect by this time these systems to be kicked into utility practice, and that transparency element and fairness element is seriously looked at by the utilities also. Otherwise it is unfair by it's not fair by the consumer to bear the costs.
So you as the PUCSL is the middle stand between the final consumer and the provider of all these utilities.
Exactly.
So you have that barrier saying, look, you have to be fair in the utilities that you provide so that the public will not be burdened. In this carrying out this regulatory responsibility, can you say that the PUCSL has been successful thus far?
Yeah, actually PUCSL is a very young organization, so we have been regulating for just 6 years now.
Yeah.
So, and we are regulating a very challenging sector with a lot of challenges, and I think we are slowly moving in the right direction to get the regulations implemented in the proper way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumarasinghe, for being here with us and talking to us on the generation plan and the future of the Ceylon Electricity Board as well as the PUCSL. That was, of course, Mr. Damita Kumarasinghe. We'll be joining you next week as well with an interesting guest. We'll be talking more of what is happening in the country. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chaturang Hapuaraj.